Good evening and welcome into the Mafia Cast, brought to the fans by the fans, and this is your one-stop shop for all things Bills every single week. Now here are your hosts, Mike Yanni, Ronnie Eastham, and Casey Sita.
I went to unmute myself and it muted me back in. Welcome in, Bills Mafia, to another episode of the Mafia Cast. Today we've got a special episode. We've got Aaron Schatz in the house with us. We're going to talk a little DVOA and how the Bills look in that regard. Casey, co-host, back together. What's going on, man?
Nothing. Just want to wish the wife. This is 4 years ago today. I asked her to be my wife, and shockingly, she said yes. And now here we are 4 years later, baby on the way. So life couldn't be much better.
Congratulations. Yes.
Thank you.
Congratulations. And we are all shocked that she said yes. Anyways.
Yeah.
Aaron, how are you doing, my friend?
I'm good. You know, I've talked about this season so much on different podcasts. I am ready to start. I'm ready to start the season. It's going to be hard to wait the 3 more weeks because I'm ready to go. I've been living in this season for months preparing our book. So I'm ready to rock. The book is FTN Football Almanac 2024. It's on sale now at Amazon, or the online version, which we just dropped the price of it to $30 at ftnfantasy.com/almanac. So folks should check that out. It's got Travis Kelce on the cover of this year's book. And if all goes well for you guys, we'll put Josh Allen on the cover of next year's book.
Well, after today, and you know the most recent news, it's going to be, if we do well enough to for him to earn that cover, I think it'll be a bit of a surprise to everybody.
No, not great news today for the Bills. The good news is it sounded like they think Milano might be back by the end of the season, which means if you slip into the playoffs, you would have him for the playoffs.
Right. And someone put out today that if you think about it this way, we would be better at linebacker at the end of this year than we were at the end of last year, even though we had Milano for 5 games. Right. In the beginning last year. You know, it was fun, but you'd rather lose him for the first 15 games and have him for the last, you know, whatever it is, last 4 or 5 most important games. At least that's the way I think of it.
The trend was very interesting last year because the defense really collapsed without Milano and Tre'Davious White for about 6 games. And then all of a sudden it played well again. Like they figured out how to play without those guys for like the last 6 games, and the defense played well again. So if they've figured out how to play without those guys, now that they have to play without those guys, it may not be as bad as you think.
Right. I mean, I think last year kind of prepared us for this. You know, like, are we still tight at linebacker because of it? Yeah. You know, we have a lot of older veterans and younger guys that don't have much playing experience. But last year we battled. There was so much on the injury front last year with the injury bug. I mean,
yes,
basically all 11 starters at one point were hurt and didn't play at some point in the season. So, but now to have an entire preseason to game plan without Milano, they can actually get a plan in place instead of going by the seat of their pants doing it.
It's interesting because for the most part, linebackers do not move the needle in projections. I think Milano is one of the exceptions. I think Milano is a guy like a Roquan Smith or a Fred Warner where you do have to consider him and what his loss means for the defense. Whereas normally linebackers come in and out and you just sort of shrug your shoulders.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that too, because I've made the comment here on this show in the past that the linebacker position is kind of almost like the running back position on the defensive side. But you're right. Somebody like a Milano or Roquan Smith, one of those guys, they can make a difference. My hope is with this situation that the Dorian Williams, you know, he's a year older now. Do we think that he could be this year's Terrell Bernard?
I mean, I don't know much about him and how much he played last year. So, you know, I mean, I trust like the Ravens do a really good job of draft and follow, where they'll take a guy like Trenton Simpson, knowing that he's going to sit for a year and then, bring him on. I mean, Williams had reasonable pass coverage numbers in a little bit of playing time last year, but you're talking about a guy who basically played 200 snaps. So you can't really judge much off of stats from that.
And those were snaps at the end of the year and in the playoffs against the top tier, tippy top teams. So he was thrown to the wolves. We all knew he was raw as a prospect, that he had the physical abilities. Now it was honing and crafting those abilities. Getting his feet wet and being thrown into the dogs last year might have been the best thing for him, because like we all remember in the Kansas City game, the PI that was called against him. We stopped him on third medium. We were about to get the ball back, it seemed like take the lead and win the game. And then but then the flag came out. Maybe being a year older, learning behind Bernard, getting a whole year with Milano next to him, teaching him the ways. I think it could be a very good year for Dorian.
Could be, for sure. And we can only hope so, right? Another player that might be called upon is Balin Spector. Unfortunately, he is yet again injured. And I know, Casey, this is one of your favorite guys. I'm not going to ask too much about him, because I know he didn't play at all last year, I don't believe, except until maybe in the playoffs. Right. But, what it comes down to is one of these two guys is going to have to replace Milano, or do their best to replace Milano. And to Aaron's point, I think that the fact that this was the position that they were in last year, they kind of already have that blueprint. And I do think the linebacker room is a little deeper this year than it was before. So I guess we shall see.
They're also, by the way, I'll point out, they're deep at safety. If they want to play some dime with a 3 safety look and only one linebacker, they can do some of that.
Yeah,
and they did last year.
A little bit of that. Yeah.
They dropped Hoyer down
as that third guy.
Yeah, and they dropped Hoyer down into the box because, he was a little bit slower last year. I just just watching, it looked like he was just a tad slower than he was in the past couple of years. So dropping him down into the box and letting him just kind of free roam was one of the best things that McDermott did. And kudos to him for recognizing it and being able to be like, okay, let's just, get another lighter linebacker out there. And Poyer is smart enough to play it. And to Aaron's point, this is where Cole Bishop comes into play. He's been best at playing downhill in the box. That was what he was best at in college. So if we have Rapp and at this point Hamlin, playing the 2 high safeties, you can get Bishop in there, and he, how physical he is and how much he wants to attack downhill. Let him go wild.
Yeah, they're deep at safety because they have Kareem Jackson now.
Yep.
And there's Mike Edwards. And so they could absolutely do a lot with the 3 safety looks. I know McDermott loves to just play nickel all the time, but this may be the time to switch it up a little bit.
I don't know that he will. We have said that before in the past, even against teams like the Ravens who run a lot. He will not move away from that nickel look. You brought up Mike Edwards, so I want to talk about him for a second because he's been injured for pretty much the entire training camp and hasn't really gotten on the field. As a result of that, DeMar Hamlin has been kind of stepping in and taking advantage of that, and Cole Bishop has been injured as well, trying to work his way back onto the field. He did get back into some of the drills today. It looks like he could be maybe hopefully get some time in the preseason later. But what is your assessment about Mike Edwards? Do you think he can fit into this defense? Because from what I've heard from a lot of Chiefs fans, he was more of a weakness of that defense last year than he was helping them.
Yeah, I'm not going to say I'm kind of an expert. I'm not going to proclaim myself an expert on safety scouting. Safety is the hardest position in the NFL to judge with statistics. I think it's the hardest position to judge with scouting too, because you never are not quite sure what a guy's responsibilities are, and the stats change dramatically with the responsibilities. But my sense of Edwards is that he's a reasonable guy, but nothing special. Like not, not a replacement level guy, but not, he's good. Like, but he's not like really good.
He's good enough.
Yeah, good enough. Yeah,
good enough. Casey, I'll ask you because I know we've kind of talked about this a little bit. If you had a preference or a thought on between Hamlin and Edwards, do you think what does each one do better than the other, and who would you like to maybe see get that role?
I mean, before Hamlin's injury happened, Hamlin was playing the Poyer role, down in the box and attacking that way. We were saying it back then. He was a liability in coverage. So I would much rather see him playing the Poyer, quote unquote Poyer role, and playing more down in the box. Mike Edwards kind of seemed to be a little bit more of the Micah Hyde role, but it seems they're both fighting for the Micah Hyde role. But at this point, I'd rather go with Hamlin if he is playing as good as everybody says. He's been in the system for 3 years now. He's earned his reps for sure. I mean, he was the first safety off the bench before the injury. We were never saying, I think it was Jay Spence that said this, we were never saying we were going to lose the Super Bowl while we couldn't make it to the Super Bowl with Hamlin as the starting safety that year. But that wasn't what was hampering us. So I would much rather see Hamlin in there than Mike Edwards. I've always kind of thought Mike Edwards would be the one that ended up getting cut for one reason or another. And when he got hurt, I was like, that might just be the nail in the coffin for it because he won't have the opportunity to compete to earn that spot. And he hasn't yet. He hasn't been able to get on the field at all. And in the NFL, your best ability is availability, and he is not.
Yeah. And I mean, talking about injuries and getting cut, it pretty much cost Chase Claypool today, not signed, but agreed to an injury settlement. That's what I'm trying to say. And I believe it's a 3-week period, so he is officially a free agent now. Anybody can sign him. If nobody does so within 3 weeks, then the Bills can bring him back on. Casey, we've talked about this, and Aaron, I'll ask you too. What are your thoughts on Chase Claypool? Now, he could potentially fit. Never.
Stop trying to make fetch happen.
Thank you, Aaron. Thank you. You just broke Mike's heart and hopes and dreams. Thank you.
Yeah, I think the rest of the country looked around at some of the hype that was coming out about him during OTAs and was like, come on, really?
Yeah.
He's had chances. He's had his chances.
Right.
And speaking of receivers that have had their chances, go ahead, Casey. I'll bring up this next guy in just a second. What do you got?
No, I just someone who has shown the ability that he is able to be a star in this league. The fact that he was able to throw it all away, it seemed like on a whim. To quote my grandmother, he got too big for his britches.
He'd whip up on the UFL though.
Oh my God, he'd be MVP every single year. But that's because he would know that he's the best player. He thought he was the best player in the NFL, and then next thing you know, I'm not even close. I'm not even top 50. I'm not even going to crack the top 100. It's kind of like kickers. We've all been talking about with Tyler Bass. It seems like it's a confidence thing. It's obviously not an ability thing with Tyler Bass. It's in his head now. And it seemed like that exact same thing happened to Chase Claypool. And some players can kick out of it, can really snap out of it, and it finally clicks for him. Claypool, I think his best opportunity was playing in Miami last year in the most prolific passing offense in the league, and he couldn't get that done and won the Bills the division by giving Taylor Rapp the game-winning interception. That play is all I imagined. All I could think about was when we signed him. I was like, oh great, he's going to lose us a division now? Is this just a spy op thing? What the hell is this?
Yeah, I personally think we've got our 5 or 6 receivers. One of whom, though, kind of goes back and forth with, especially between Case and I and the fan base as a whole, and that's Marquez Valdes-Scantling. The way I see it, he spent time with Aaron Rodgers, He spent time with Patrick Mahomes, and yet he cannot find a place to stay and really be successful. Yes, he has some really nice plays here and there. Yes, he's fast, but the inconsistencies it's frustrating. And I think we saw it even in the preseason game. He had one target and he dropped it. He dropped passes, multiple passes in during training camp, and now there's starting to be some rumblings that he might not actually make this team. Aaron, from what you saw from him last year, what do you think about him? And
he's a one-trick pony.
Yeah.
Introduced a new stat last year called route DVOA. It's based on routes rather than targets. And the idea is that drawing targets is itself a skill. So you want guys out there who can get open and draw targets even if they don't catch all of them. And Valdez-Scantling in route DVOA over the last 3 years is 82nd, 80th, and 88th. That's bad. So, yeah, he's a one-trick pony, and they might need the trick. I mean,
that's my point.
They might need one guy who can do the trick, and he can do the trick, but he's not going to be a starting receiver for you. You bring him in every so often and send him deep just to let the other team know Josh Allen has an arm. Beware. Like, here we go.
Yeah.
Preach, Aaron. Preach. Thank you for backing me up on the exact same. This is all I've been telling. Like, if MVS is your 4th, 5th wide receiver, that's fine. Because all you're asking him to do is run straight real fast and make the defense honor that. Every now and then, throw it to him to make that honor happen. Other than that, I don't care about him. I'm not expecting him to be our starter. But to have somebody with that possible threat, just the second he steps on the field, whether he's going to catch it or not, the defense, no matter what happens, they have to honor that, and it's going to open up everything else underneath.
Here's the thing. Gabe Davis is very similar as far as inconsistencies. The only difference is MVS is faster. But yeah, Gabe Davis had an average yards. His career average yards per reception is like 17 and some change, I believe.
Gabe Davis was better at getting open and getting targets.
Yeah.
And he could run multiple routes. He could run more routes on the routes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's the thing. If you've got somebody that can do that, Gabe Davis could get open downfield. He could still stretch the defense, even though he wasn't a sub 4.5 or 4.4 guy. He could still get down the field and remind everybody about Josh Allen's arm. I think the Bills have some guys like that right now that do have that speed. I think KJ Hamler can be that guy. Curtis Samuel, I know he's more of kind of a gadget guy, but he's got the speed to get downfield if they want to stretch the defense a little bit every now and then. There are other people in the Dalton Kincaid. He can go and stretch down the field. There's options other than MVS, who I trust way more than I do Marquez Valdez-Scantling. I don't want him on the team.
You can't say that you trust KJ Hamler as much as you like more than MVS. Did you not watch the game that we on Saturday too either or whatever? Muffed a punt, slipped 3 times, dropped a pass. That's just to say that you want
one moment. You're talking about one moment in time as opposed to MVS, who has a career of this.
Yeah, I mean, I go by what guys do in their career, not what they do in one preseason game. The problem is Hamler hasn't had a career.
Thank you. That's where I was going to next. He hasn't had a career yet. Same with Tyrell Shavers. I know that this is, I think, his 2nd or 3rd year. But, he hasn't been able to crack the roster, period. And my point to last time we argued about this, Ronnie, is MVS may have been inconsistent and may not have been the best receiver on the Chiefs. He still started in 2 Super Bowls for him. He still made one of the most clutch plays against the Bills to get to that Super Bowl last year. He does.
I know.
So at least he's had a career and he has a trick and he can do things and has done things. I want the name with the sure, the sure commodity, the thing that's been the sure commodity, rather than another Isaiah Hodgins.
He's not a sure commodity though. You know what you're getting. I would rather go with the unknown.
He can run
potential.
Fast.
Come on. How many receivers have been in the league that could run fast and did absolutely nothing?
And MVS has done more than them.
Yeah, because he had Aaron. We'll move on.
Aaron, who's right? Who's right here?
I mean, if you keep him as the fifth receiver, so here's the problem. If you keep him as like the fifth receiver, he probably doesn't play special teams. So that becomes an issue.
Correct.
But I don't know what KJ Hamler is at this point. I mean, I think he ends up being like your fourth guy because you got Mac Hollins who can play special teams. So,
right.
I mean, he'll do his thing. He you're not going to use him too much, and I think it'll be fine.
Yeah.
I'll take that as a win. One.
I don't think that. I think that was like straddling the line. Huh?
No, I wouldn't be shocked if they cut him either.
No, I wouldn't be surprised either. But I'm always more about the thing that's been proven, rather than taking the risk.
And I'm a gambler too. KJ Hamler can contribute on special teams. Shavers can contribute on special teams. Hollins can contribute on special teams. That's three guys right there. And then you've got Coleman. Obviously, he's not going anywhere. You've got Shakir and Samuel. That's 6 receivers already. And I don't see Buffalo keeping more than that. I could be completely wrong. And maybe I am a little bit biased because I'm not an MVS fan at all. Kind of the same way I kind of started going off of Gabe Davis last year. I thought, okay, this will be the year. This will be the year he's going to figure. And then he would, like you talked about, Casey, he just disappears for weeks. So, and that's where I see MVS. Yes, maybe he catches 4 touchdowns in a playoff game against the Chiefs, but he's probably going to drop and disappear for weeks on end between that. But let's move on. Most of the comments here in the section are on my side, so thank you everybody who's listening. Speaking of which, everybody who's listening, if you're on YouTube or if you're not on YouTube but you're still listening, please jump over there, give us a subscribe, trying to grow that channel a little bit. And we're also on Facebook. You can check us out, the Mafia Cast on Facebook. Give us a like and subscribe there or follow. Before we move into the next little bit, I do want to talk about some of the other players that we've got here on the Bills and kind of look forward to this upcoming game. Before we do that, let's go ahead and hear from our sponsors over at Game On Sports.
Hey, this is John from Game On Video Games and Sports Memorabilia. We are Rochester's premier trading card store. We have a wide selection of trading cards, autographs, and memorabilia. We also do autograph and celebrity appearances in the store. So if you're looking for the perfect gift for yourself, relative that doesn't like the Bills, or for a friend, come down and check us out at our Rochester location, 2670 Dewey Avenue, or our Hamburg location at 1 Buffalo Street. Go Bills.
Yeah, it's from John over at Game On Sports. You can check him out, like I said, Rochester and Hamburg stores. There's one thing I want to get in here really quick as far as the comment section, because this one's for Casey. Casey, what's the over-under on drops for MVS if he makes the team? That's from one of our regulars at Roy Collins.
I mean, if he makes the team, he's going to be wide receiver number 5, like I said. So, 20 targets on the entire year?
And 11 drops.
Call it 4 drops. That's whatever.
Yeah.
I can count 4 drops by Diggs and like half last year.
Yeah, there's no lie there. Hey, let's move on to some of these other players because a couple of guys that, first of all, on the defensive side that I wanted to ask you about, and that's Gregory Rousseau. The last couple of years, it seems like he has started out really, really well, picks up, seeming like 3 sacks within the first, 4 or 5 games, and then kind of tails off. Does the DVOA and what you've seen kind of reflect that?
Yeah, we don't have for a specific edge rushers, but pressure-wise, he had 34 pressures last year, which was 3rd on the team behind Floyd and Oliver. So I think you do want to see a little bit more out of him. 5 sacks is not really enough. He was strong against the run, though.
Mm-hmm.
He makes his average run tackle close to the line of scrimmage. But you need more pass rush out of him, I think.
Yeah, I think he definitely needs to make that step. He was one of the, I mean, if you look at Pro Football Focus grades, he was one of the top run defenders at the edge in the league and has been for the last couple of years now. Another one that you just mentioned was Oliver. I think he was second in pressures.
Yes, we have him second in pressures and second in sacks.
Yeah. Casey, what are your expectations for this tandem, Russo and Oliver?
Do I expect Ed Oliver to get 9.5 sacks next year? I mean, probably not. That's extremely high for a defensive tackle. I mean, that's a hell of a season. He, drops down a little bit to 6.5, 7. That's more this world like. I wouldn't be hurt because hopefully Groot does take that step, but I've gone on this podcast before and said it kind of seems like he's the next Shaq Lawson, who is phenomenal at stopping the run. Will give you 5 sacks every year. Sometimes they'll come in very key moments. Other times they'll come in the first, 3 will come in the first 2 games, like it seems to has the last couple of years. So I know last year he dealt with that nagging foot injury, so there is part of that, and also being taken off the field for Von Miller, who he himself said shouldn't be out there. So just, in my opinion, the snap increase, and hopefully, again, this is the year he stays healthy. I could see him, pushing that 10 sack mark. Could see is the wrong term. Hope he could push that 10 sack mark. My money is more so on AJ Epinesa. I think that the injury really pushed him last year. I mean, in the beginning, he had a very good year, a very limited role. I think he only had like 40% of the snaps or something like that. He was just he had 2 interceptions, one against the Chiefs. He had a pick 6 against Washington. He was phenomenal. He was on his way. Then the injury kind of derailed him. Then Von Miller came back and kind of threw off the entire defensive end rotation. And, oh my gosh, Leonard Floyd ended up playing, I think, better than people were expecting. So he earned more snaps, which kind of pushed Epinesa down the board below Von Miller and Groot. So I think between he and Groot being the starters, and just the snap count alone is going to cause their sacks and pressures to go up.
Yeah, well, I mean, we hopefully, because last year I think we had 54, 55 total sacks as a team. We're ranked just in the top 5, but it seemed like there was moments when we really needed them that they just disappeared, especially in the playoffs again. But speaking of which, Aaron, do you guys, when you do the DVOA, is there a separate DVOA for playoff performances versus regular season, or do you?
I do playoffs
together.
Yep.
Okay. Yep. So I'm curious how it looks when you compare the Bills' playoff performances versus the regular season. Is there a significant drop-off or changes, or are they pretty much the same?
No, I mean, it's a little bit of a drop-off. They lost, but I don't feel like they're not going into the playoffs and getting killed.
Right.
It's not like year after year they go into the playoffs and get destroyed.
Yeah.
I mean, the Kansas City game was not as close as the final score, but the Pittsburgh game was probably not as close as the final score either.
Agreed.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree on that.
I guess a lot of – I was just going to say a lot of people's rebuttal to we haven't been getting killed in the playoffs would be, yes, that's because you have Josh Allen. We might be losing 24-21 or 31-34 to the Chiefs, but they're like, yeah, but that's because you have the second best quarterback in the league.
Yeah, but you haven't.
And thank you. Exactly. That's my point to that is, okay, we have him. Our defense is trying to do enough against the best quarterback in the league that has knocked us out of the playoffs the last 3 years. Josh is doing everything he can. The defense, yes, we're losing because of them, but 31 other teams lose because against Patrick Mahomes because of their defense as well. So it's just one of those things. The seeding just is always lined up that way. It's not like anybody's done anything on purpose to make sure the Bills and Chiefs always play before the AFC Championship.
Yeah, that argument would be like saying the Chiefs won back-to-back Super Bowls. Well, yeah, but because you have Patrick Mahomes. Well, no kidding.
Yeah, right. Like,
Yeah.
But yeah, you have him.
Right.
Exactly. How I can rephrase this question? So last year, Buffalo's defense finished according to DVOA. They were 12th in the league. Offense was 3rd. Do you guys have any way, or do you project into the coming year?
Oh yeah, there's full projections for every team.
And where are you putting Buffalo in that?
Well, this is before, a few moves were made by various teams, and before the Milano injury, we had Buffalo 4th in offense and 10th in defense.
And how do you derive those?
You guys didn't see much. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Casey.
No, I was going to say you guys didn't see much drop off from us losing Diggs then. That's interesting.
No, I mean, Diggs, everybody regresses towards the mean, but, other teams had drop off for reasons too. And Diggs was not good in the second half of the year. Just wasn't good in the second half of the year.
Yeah. Yeah, we've talked about that as well. Mike over here he's in the background, but he's asked a question. He's curious of who's in first in each of those as far as the DVOA.
San Francisco is our top projected offense. Cleveland is our top projected defense.
Interesting.
100% support both.
I can see that.
100%.
Yeah, the 3 offenses that are projected better than Buffalo are San Francisco, Miami, and Green Bay.
Green Bay.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, that's quantity, not quality. And that's basically. Well, I'm saying that's how Green Bay built their team is they went.
Oh yeah, they don't have the number one. They have 4 number 1 receivers. Yeah.
Right. Like they went out and they went bargain shopping in the draft, drafting 2 second round guys, 3rd round guys, and after and Rodgers left and to go to the Jets and play with
their defense
some more.
The Packers' defense and special teams are problematic.
Yeah, I can see that for the defense. 100%.
Where do you have the Packers on the defense?
24th.
Wow.
Yeah.
They could sure use Rasul Douglas this year, couldn't they?
And it'll be lower now because Atlanta will have passed. Atlanta will have passed them by trading for Judon and signing Simmons.
Oh my God, they're about to shoot up the board.
Yeah, Atlanta was our lowest projected defense. They are not our lowest projected defense anymore. They are much better.
No, I mean their safety group now alone is Jesse Bates, considered the best safety in the league, and awesome. Justin Simmons. Then they got AJ Terrell on the outside. That's fantastic.
Their front 7 still is basically now it's just Judon and Grady Jarrett and some other dudes.
Right.
But yeah.
Right. And Grady Jarrett's getting up there in age.
Yeah.
The thing about the Bills, the thing I would say about the Bills is that they have the hardest schedule in the league, and that's going to make life tough.
Now that's hardest schedule based on DVOA, right?
Yes, based on the average projection for each of the 17 opponents, they have the hardest schedule in the league. The AFC East has all the hardest schedules pretty much. Patriots are 2, Miami is 3.
The poor Patriots. The Patriots and the Vikings. I feel so bad for them this week.
No.
I still think the Patriots defense is going to be better than people expect, even without Judon. But their offense will be bad.
Yeah, I think their offense is going to be tough to watch.
Yeah. You may have already said this, Aaron, but I think I missed it. Did you say where the Bills defense comes in on your projection?
Yeah, 10th. But that's before the Milano injury. It's not adjusted.
Well, I guess we're out of the top 10 then.
Yeah, probably.
I'd say so. If he considers Milano to be one of, just off the top
one of the few linebackers that really does move the needle, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, that's going to drop drastically.
Yeah. Well, so, I mean, that would be pretty much in line with where they were last year. They finished 12th overall.
Yeah.
In 2023. So
DVOA is more consistent from year to year than other stats. It's not, so you project that teams are going to stay consistent. Of course they're not. And you have to consider personnel changes. I mean, obviously the Falcons just made a lot of personnel changes, coaching changes, certain things that regress stronger than other things. So all that stuff gets considered, but it makes sense that we expect teams to be roughly what they were last year.
Yeah.
Can I add, so
changes
in all the research I did leading up to this podcast, the baseline that I came up with is that it seems to me that DVOA is, in my opinion, I'm probably way off, that it seems to me that if DVOA is kind of the eye test put into numbers, to where, like, if I just, like, reflecting back on the Bills season last year and looking at the chart that you had put up, it was like the Bills were spiking in the beginning, and then you saw them drop, which was just just judging, remembering the games, it was like, yeah, we were terrible those games. Then all of a sudden we spiked back up, and it was like the offensive coordinator flip, and next thing you know, we were starting to take off again. So to me, like, it just seemed kind of like it was sort of a loose eye test put into numbers.
Yeah, sometimes it tells you what your eyes are missing, though, because the goal is to filter out context, to filter out luck, to filter out opponent strength, and figure out how good teams are really playing, to try to figure out how good they're going to play going forward.
Yeah, because every play is analyzed, and it's based on that particular play in the situation. Who are you up against? What's the down? What's the distance?
Yep.
And all of that. I do, yeah. So it's an interesting stat, and I think it's certainly more – like if you go over to PFF website, and then they explain how they come up with their numbers, and it's based by per play analyzed, but it's not broken down into situational football. And that's so much of what this game is today. I mean, to your point with MVS, he's a situational type player. So I think it's interesting. Yeah, I think we're all excited for the season. Aaron, I know, we've kind of been going back and forth a little bit with the whole MVS thing. We're going to find out here in a couple of weeks what's going to happen with that. But based on what you have seen so far, I mean, I don't know how closely you watch preseason and things like that, but
no, I don't watch it very closely at all.
No,
I don't think there's much to be learned from it other than what the depth charts are.
So let me ask you this.
Basically, all there is to learn.
Yeah. So let me ask you this, because I've had this conversation with some people offline. Do we even need preseason games? Because you look at college football, they don't have preseason games. They go right into the season.
They kind of do. They have those early games where the top teams play crappy teams.
I was going to say, this is where Alabama pays Alabama Community College $2 million to play.
I don't know. You'd have to. I mean, coaches want it. They're going to end up reducing it soon to 2.
Yeah.
Right. It's inevitable that we're going to 2 preseason and 18 regular season.
I've said it. It's less than 5 years away.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. As a fan, I remember thinking, man, 18 games, heck yeah, give me more football. The more I've gotten into this game and the more I've studied it and doing this content stuff, the less I'm like, oh yeah, let's have 2 more games so these guys can get hurt. Because the last 2 years, that has ultimately, in my opinion, what has cost the Bills their season is these stinking injuries. And here we are, 2024. We haven't played a second preseason game, and we've already lost arguably our best player on defense. So, I kind of wish we'd just stick with the 16 games, honestly. But like you said, Casey, it's money.
Yeah. All right, guys, I actually have to wrap it up.
Yeah, we're going to get on out of here.
But I want to promote my book one more time here.
Go for it.
Book, FTN Football Almanac 2024. You can get this at Amazon or at ftnfantasy.com/almanac. And FTN is having a subscription sale just until the end of tonight. With code FTN15, you get 15% off an FTN subscription. So folks should go check out ftnfantasy.com.
Check it out, people. Aaron, appreciate you coming on. I know you got to get out of here, so take care. And again, thank you for coming.
All right. Good luck to the Bills. Thank you very much,
Aaron. Thank you.
Casey, Anything else you want to add before we bounce for the evening?
I'm right, God damn it, and he said it.
No, he didn't.
He did.
He did a really good job.
He said he's a one-trick pony, and you need that trick.
He did a good job of saying we're both right.
I'm right.
Anyways.
I can't tell my 29-year-old self otherwise. I'm right about everything. Just ask my wife.
Before we get out of here, we haven't even talked about this upcoming game, though, so let's do that really quick. I haven't heard anything. Correct me if I'm wrong if you have, but have anything on the players who might play in this game? It seems like in the past, game number 2 has kind of become the dress rehearsal for the starters, but what do you think? What are you expecting this weekend?
Well, I do want to say, going back to last week, I'm 1 for 1 on game picks. We always lose. We always get blown out in one of the preseason games. And I don't know what it was, but I had a feeling it was going to happen. Like last year, it was against the Steelers. Kenny Pickett looked unstoppable against us. And our defense was and our offense was terrible. Terrible. And like they blew doors off us. And then we were like, all right, let's show you how Big Brother does it in the playoffs.
Yeah.
I think this will probably be the game where they play like a half. You know, they're going to really go out there and might actually game plan a little bit, you know, to truly, you know, get everybody going. Because you're not just out there for, you know, Josh was out there for 8 snaps last game. He's going to be, you know, he's going to be out there for a little bit more. So I think they're going to ask him, okay, yeah, go ahead, get in a rhythm. Go try to score some points without running the goddamn football. Try to score some points. You know, take your licks when you can, if you need to. You know, other than that, stay healthy, stay safe. And I think the game 3 is where we're going to really see like all the 2s, 3s, and 4s just go rampant. Like that's where I fully expect Cole Bishop to play is game 3.
Who?
If he's healthy, Cole Bishop. I didn't know he came back today, but in my opinion, if he came back a little bit today and did a little bit of off the side work, if this is the beginning for them to start ramping him back up, I think next week would be, you know, the 3rd preseason game. You know, let him go get his feet wet again, just like they did with Keon Coleman. They threw him 2 passes. He played great defense on one of them, caught the other one, and just like let him see what the speed is, because like everybody said, the speed is different between the NFL, between college and then the NFL practice, and then NFL practice to preseason, and then preseason to regular season is like night and day. So if you can at least get him to the preseason, he won't be so wet behind the ears like when he does have to step on the field during the regular season.
Yeah. So that's what you think will happen. What do you hope will happen?
On Saturday or with Cole Bishop?
Yeah, I'll just preface that with saying on Saturday. I'll just preface that question with, I don't want Allen on the field. Period. The way this thing is shaping up already with the injuries, I don't even want him putting the pads on. He might pull a hammy.
Josh is probably it's so funny. The number 1 position where you can't get hurt is also the same exact position to where I am least afraid of getting hurt. He is bigger than 90% of the guys in the NFL, and you know, either in strength, in height, or weight. You know, like other than linemen, everybody else is at max his size, at max, and that's linebackers. So I'm really not afraid of him getting hurt, unless, you know, it would be a freak thing. He gets rolled up on when he's in the pocket, you know, that like right. Something like that. But like, he's agile enough to where like we've seen him get rolled up on before, and he was okay. And he's very good at sensing pressure. I mean, he wouldn't be nearly the quarterback he is today if he couldn't feel the pressures coming from every which way. It's like he has a spidey sense. So I got Mike cracking up with that one. I'm not too worried about Josh. So, and also one of my good friends is a Steelers fan. So I want the Bills to beat the doors off him every single time they play.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. I'm sure he'll probably get in the game a little bit because, like I said, I think the game number 2 has kind of become the dress rehearsal for the starters. But yeah, I guess for me, like I am an eternal optimist. I go into every season, even during a drought, when J.P. Lawson was their quarterback and whoever else was their quarterback, I was like, oh, this is going to be the year. They're finally going to turn the corner. They're going to all step up and they're going to develop into superstars. Because of the last 2 years with the injuries and the way this thing is playing out already this year with the injuries, my optimism is, I'll be honest, a little bit starting to wane. Because can we please have an injury? I don't want to say free because that never happens, but the 3 or 4 years prior to the last two, it would seem like nobody got hurt.
I was going to say, we're getting our comeuppance. When we first started this podcast, was it 4 years ago now, 3 years ago now, Jesus Christ. We talked about it then. We weren't injured. Like we were one of the healthiest, if not the healthiest team outside of Tre'Davious White. Because that was when he had his back-to-back knee injuries. Outside of him, we were fine. Milano or Edmonds would be banged up here and there. Yeah. They missed, like Edmonds would miss a game, then Milano would miss the next game because they're like, one of you's got to freaking play. And now everybody's 3 years older. Everybody's got 1,500 snaps or whatever, like crazy amount of snaps more they've gained in those 3 years. Yeah, I mean, it was about time. There's a reason why Brandon Beane got younger overall across the board on this team. Who's gotten hurt? It's been all of the older players outside of Cole Bishop. It's been all of the older players. I mean, even Daquan Jones has been sidelined here and there. Now, Curtis Samuel missed Tuesday, and he missed today with an off day in between. Is it something personal? Probably, but it's still worth noting. So I'm with you there. My optimism is dwindling a little bit for the season as a whole. But in my opinion, I think I've been very transparent with you and Mike on this. This wasn't a throwaway year. Yes. Do I think we're still going to win the division? Do I think we're going to win the Super Bowl? No, because we are too young. But this is the same thing that we did when we drafted Josh and Tremaine Edmonds. We're getting the foundation blocks again, to restart building it. And 2025 is going to be the year when we retake that step again. But screw the Dolphins. We're still winning this division, baby.
Yeah, I would disagree. Yes, we got younger, but a lot of that youth isn't going to be playing just yet still, with the exception of, we're going to see Coleman out there. But even that, I think the offense, I think we can all agree the offense is going to run through James Cook, Don Kincaid, and Khalil Shakir. If you follow any of the beat reporters who are on the field watching these practices since training camp has started, Kincaid and Shakir have been uncoverable. And even in the joint practices today with the Steelers secondary had no answers for either one of those two. They were just absolutely dominant. And then the offensive line is pretty much the same. Osiris Torrance is a year older, so he's good. Outside of really the safeties, with the potential of Cole Bishop playing, maybe he doesn't start, maybe he will, who knows. There's not a lot of youth necessarily that we're going to have to depend on a lot in this coming season. Curtis Samuel is obviously not a young guy, new to the team. Yeah. So I think this team, as it is right now, is still a Super Bowl contender. And I will continue to believe that as long as we got Josh Allen. I think he is the key. If knock on wood, we lost him, then I think the season's done. We're toast. Look forward to next year.
I'd love to see the DVOA drop in that.
Oh my goodness, I wouldn't.
Could you imagine? I'd be like, let's go. We're getting a DN next year, Ronnie. We're gonna get to draft one.
All right, folks, we're gonna get out of here. Again, we're looking forward to that game on Saturday. I haven't looked to see if it's going to be on NFL Network. They do replay all the games.
Prime time. So you live all the way out in, I can't say the term what I was going to say. You live all the way out in Idaho, so it's not on local TV for you, unlike us New Yorkers. So luckily, we'll be able to get that on NBC.
Last year it was on NFL, or not last year. Last week it was on NFL Network. So maybe I will be able to watch that again. But I'll catch a replay regardless. Anyways, we're going to get on out of here. We'll be back on Monday. Casey, we have a guest coming Monday. Yes? No? I can't remember.
Yeah, it's Ryan Talbot.
Oh, the 19th. Ryan Talbot from Shout Podcast will be joining us. We'll get his take. He is one of those that is on the field watching these guys practice up close and personal. Cannot wait to pick his brain and talk to him about what he is seeing.
Sad I won't be here. Monday is my wife's birthday. I'm not going to reveal how old she is because I think pregnancy hormones, she'd kill me and smother me in my sleep for that. So I won't be here. So Mike's going to be filling in for me. So boys, enjoy. I'm very jealous. I'll try to tune in as much as I can. But yeah, enjoy Ryan Talbot, and I'll be back next Thursday.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk with him. Really quick to follow up, Bills Steelers tomorrow or Saturday. It looks like 5 o'clock, and it looks like it will be aired live on NFL Network. So if you've got NFL Network, then you can check out the game. John, Robert, it will be Ryan. Ryan Talbot is the one coming on the show. We've had Matt before, so it's only fair to bring in Ryan so we can talk Bills football. Let's get out of here. I can smell the dinner downstairs, so I am starving. We're going to get out. Go Bills.
Go Bills. Tell your friends.